There's a certain kind of machine that doesn't just move people, it stirs something deep inside them. You hear the engine note before you see it, a crisp mechanical song that sounds more like a promise than noise. You catch a glimpse of a silhouette, sleek, restrained, purposeful, and you realize it was built in a time when design and engineering chased harmony, not algorithms. It represents a belief that a car could be both sculpture and science, an idea forged in an era when analog control met rising ambition. Decades later, that same vision still commands reverence. It's not nostalgia, it's respect earned through precision, purpose, and timeless proportion. The kind of car that defined a generation then outlived it.
Today, we're going to explore one of those machines in detail. The decisions, the drama, the legacy that still echoes through garages and highways across the world.
If that sounds like your kind of deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which icon you want to see next. The BMW E39 M5 arrived in 1998 as a statement of intent, a sedan engineered to prove that practicality and pulse-pounding performance could coexist without compromise. At its core was a naturally aspirated 4.9-liter V8, a hand-built engine that marked a decisive leap from the six-cylinder lineage before it. The E39 M5 wasn't about chasing headlines. It was about restoring balance. BMW's M division wanted a car that could be driven daily, parked in an office lot, then tear down the Autobahn with the ferocity of an exotic. Every decision reflected that dual purpose. The chassis was based on the standard 5 Series, but nearly every critical piece was rethought. Aluminum control arms for weight reduction, a quicker steering ratio for precision, and a 6-speed manual transmission as the sole option. No automatics, no compromise. The design language spoke softly yet carried force. Subtle flares, quad exhausts, and discreet badging meant it never shouted about its capability. It simply demonstrated it. In an era obsessed with technology, the E39 M5 represented purity, mechanical connection, not electronic illusion. Its cabin mixed classic analog gauges with rich materials, placing the driver at the center of the experience without distraction. Owning one meant accepting the paradox of restraint and rebellion. It wasn't the fastest on paper, but on a winding road it felt like an extension of intent, translating thought into motion with uncanny clarity. Maintenance wasn't light, but enthusiasts didn't care. This was an era when precision craftsmanship still trumped convenience. To understand why the E39 M5 became a legend, you have to appreciate the environment it entered. The late 1990s luxury performance market was heating up. German sedans were redefining what executive cars could do. Yet most rivals chased complexity or comfort. BMW instead doubled down on feel. The E39 M5 became a case study in focused design. Every system, from brakes to suspension geometry, engineered around driver engagement rather than marketing trends. Behind its understated look lay a level of calibration that only M engineers could achieve. Even the weight distribution, near perfect at 50-50, reinforced its balance philosophy. Early owners discovered that what seemed like a quiet executive car could transform with a simple downshift. It blurred the line between road car and track tool. The development team was obsessive, testing on the Nürburgring and high-speed proving grounds until the car behaved exactly as they intended, stable at triple-digit speeds, composed over rough pavement, and responsive without being nervous. The E39 M5 wasn't created to chase technology. It was built to honor connection, to remind drivers that skill and machinery could still share a heartbeat. That philosophy would shape everything that came next, how it competed, how it was received, and how it ultimately redefined what enthusiasts expected from a performance sedan. The BMW E39 M5 entered a world ready to be challenged, and it did so with quiet confidence. From the moment journalists tested it, the narrative shifted. The family sedan had become a legitimate performance benchmark. In reviews and comparison tests, the E39 M5 routinely humbled lighter, flashier rivals, not through brute force but through cohesion. It didn't just post numbers, it created sensations. The precision of its throttle response, the immediacy of its steering, and the balance of its chassis made even seasoned drivers pause. For the first time, a four-door could deliver the emotion of a sports car without sacrificing civility. That dual nature was its weapon. The M5's 394 horsepower V8 wasn't about explosive torque alone. It was about how it delivered its power in one seamless linear surge. Drivers could sense the mechanical honesty in every gear change, every corner exit. As the E39 M5 spread through Europe and North America, It built a cult-like following among enthusiasts who wanted one car to do everything. It was a road trip machine, a track day toy, and a luxury cruiser all at once. In the US, it became a symbol of understated success, a car that said, "I know," rather than "look at me." That appeal reached tuning communities too. The E39 M5 became a canvas for subtle modifications, freer flowing exhausts, lightweight wheels, ECU tunes that nudged the already potent V8 toward even sharper response. Some owners chased more extreme conversions, swapping internals or upgrading suspension components, but the car's core personality resisted overcomplication. Every change risked disturbing the perfect equilibrium that made it special, and yet, even stock, it carried motorsport DNA. M engineers borrowed knowledge from touring car racing, applying lessons in weight distribution, cooling, and brake modulation. The result was a sedan that could lap circuits respectably while maintaining road comfort, something even rivals from Stuttgart and Ingolstadt struggled to replicate. BMW's restraint became its advantage. They didn't overload the car with electronics. The E39 M5's dynamic stability control was unobtrusive, allowing skill to shine through. It invited you to drive, not delegate. Still, the car wasn't without flaws. The S62 V8, while magnificent, demanded religious maintenance. Vano systems, rod bearings, and cooling components could punish neglect. Ownership required commitment, not casual admiration. But that very commitment deepened the bond between driver and machine. You didn't just own an E39 M5, you earned it. As the market evolved, new rivals emerged with forced induction, paddle shifters, and computerized everything. They were faster, yet somehow less involving. The E39 M5 stood as the last purely analog M5, the final chapter before turbos and electronics took over. Its purity became its legacy. Collectors began noticing it, and prices, once affordable, started to climb. In motorsport, privateers adapted E39 M5s for endurance events and hill climbs, drawn by the car's inherent robustness and balance. Meanwhile, owners formed communities across forums and clubs, sharing stories, maintenance tips, and road trip memories. The E39 M5 had evolved from a performance sedan into a cultural touchstone, proof that engineering excellence could age gracefully. Its influence even shaped later BMWs, though none quite recaptured its exact formula. The next generation, with its V10 and SMG gearbox, chased speed but lost some of the E39's intimacy. Enthusiasts noticed. That comparison would forever define how BMW's M division was judged. Even today, among collectors and drivers alike, the E39 M5 represents a high watermark for authenticity, a reminder of when performance meant mastery, not just metrics. This rising reverence leads us naturally to the bigger question. How has that legacy endured, and what does it mean for those who dream of owning or driving one today? The Tesla Model S Plaid stands today as the apex of a vision that began more than a decade earlier. And in segment 3, we finally see what its legacy really means. When Tesla released the Model S Plaid, it wasn't just chasing speed records, it was testing the limits of belief. The idea that a full-size electric sedan could outpace hypercars and still carry groceries sounded absurd, until it wasn't. And now, with a few years behind it, the Plaid's true achievement has shifted from performance to permanence. It proved that the future of driving would be defined by software, not spark plugs. In the years since launch, the Plaid has evolved quietly but constantly through over-the-air updates, refining its behavior and adapting to new expectations. While most cars freeze in time the moment they leave the factory, the Plaid keeps rewriting itself. Owners have seen acceleration modes adjusted, user interfaces redesigned, even braking logic recalibrated, all without a single trip to a dealership. That constant evolution has become its signature trait. It's not just a product of its era, it's a participant in its own timeline. Tesla turned the car into a subscription to innovation, a concept that no traditional automaker had truly mastered. But legacy isn't just about technology, it's about influence. Every rival that followed adopted some piece of the Plaid's formula, the tri-motor layout, the obsession with software control, the belief that numbers once reserved for supercars could live in everyday vehicles. The Model S Plaid forced an industry reset. For the first time, the performance hierarchy wasn't measured in displacement or cylinders, it was measured in code. Automakers scrambled to hire software engineers to rethink their drivetrains as digital ecosystems rather than mechanical puzzles. In a strange twist, Tesla's minimalist interior became prophetic. While critics mocked its simplicity, competitors began imitating it. Buttons disappeared, screens grew, and interfaces migrated online. The entire industry started chasing a standard that Tesla had already normalized. For enthusiasts, the Plaid introduced a new kind of relationship with performance. Instead of oil changes and exhaust swaps, the rituals became firmware updates and range optimizations. Tuning moved from the garage to the cloud. That shift unsettled some purists, but captivated a generation raised on smartphones and instant gratification. To them, the Plaid wasn't sterile. It was alive, reactive, connected. It wasn't just fast. It was smart. And that intelligence changed what it meant to be a driver. Skill was still valued, but mastery now included understanding how to manipulate algorithms, not just throttle response. Tesla had merged driving with data, and in doing so, built a bridge to the autonomous future it had always promised. The cultural impact of the Model S Plaid extended beyond automotive circles. It became a shorthand for technological supremacy, a status symbol not of wealth alone but of futurism. When tech CEOs and celebrities began replacing their supercars with Plaids, it wasn't just convenience, it was symbolism. Owning one said, "I'm part of what's next." And because of that, the Plaid transcended its own specifications. It wasn't merely fast. It was a social signal wrapped in brushed aluminum and battery cells. It reshaped the conversation about sustainability too. Suddenly, green no longer meant slow or compromised. It meant cutting-edge, powerful, and desirable. The electric car was no longer a moral choice. It was a competitive one. Still, time tests every revolution. As newer EVs arrived promising equal or greater numbers, the Model S Plaid faced its greatest challenge, staying relevant without fundamentally changing. Tesla's solution was subtle, iteration over reinvention. Rather than release a successor, it refined the Plaid's platform, improving efficiency, comfort, and software, while keeping its silhouette unchanged. That decision sparked debate, but also underscored Tesla's philosophy. True innovation isn't about redesigning everything. It's about perfecting what works. In that way, the Plaid aged gracefully, its once radical profile becoming an icon of restrained power. Today, the Model S Plaid occupies a strange and powerful position in the car world. It's both attainable and legendary, both familiar and futuristic. Used examples hold value not just for their speed, but for their significance. They mark the moment when electric performance stopped being a novelty and became the norm. For collectors, the first-generation Plaid may one day stand alongside classics that once defined their own eras of disruption. The muscle cars of the 60s, the turbos of the 80s, the hybrids of the 2000s. But where those relied on combustion, the Plaid's legacy will be coded in electrons and algorithms. More importantly, it redefined how we measure emotion behind the wheel. The absence of sound didn't erase excitement, it redefined it. The rush came not from noise, but from the shock of impossible acceleration, from the eerie calm as the world bent around you. That contradiction, quiet violence, is the essence of the Plaid's identity. It taught us that performance could be serene, that dominance didn't have to roar, and in that silence, the future found its voice. As automakers push toward even greater extremes, quad motors, sub-2-second claims, AI driving assistance, the shadow of the Model S Plaid lingers. It remains the proof of concept, the benchmark, the ghost they're all chasing. Tesla built a car that didn't just move fast. It moved the goalposts for an entire industry. And while its successors will surely surpass it in specs, few will ever match the cultural gravity of that first moment when an electric sedan shattered the world's understanding of speed. So when we look back on the Model S Plaid years from now, we won't just remember its numbers, we'll remember what it represented. The moment the electric age stopped apologizing for itself and started outperforming everything else. The legacy of the Plaid isn't measured in horsepower or seconds, it's measured in disbelief turned to faith. And for Tesla, that's the quiet victory that still echoes louder than any engine ever could. For anyone in the US looking at the BMW E39 M5 today, the decision is as much emotional as it is practical. This is not an appliance, it's an artifact. Prices reflect that shift. Clean examples, once $20,000 used bargains now command anywhere from $45,000 to over $100,000 depending on condition, mileage, and color combinations. The most desirable builds, low-mileage cars in carbon black, Le Mans blue, or rare individual trims, have effectively become investment-grade collectibles. But the E39 M5's appeal isn't just about value appreciation. It's about what you experience once you drive it. Reliability is solid when maintained properly, yet it's not forgiving of neglect. The S62's Vanos system, clutch, and cooling components require diligence and specialist attention. Still, compared with many modern performance cars, its mechanical accessibility is a relief. Parts are available, and the enthusiast community is strong. For those importing or maintaining one stateside, it's best to prioritize service history over mileage. These cars prefer to be driven. Long periods of storage often cause more trouble than consistent use. And when you do drive it, you'll understand why people call it the best sports sedan ever made. The steering's feedback, the throttle's immediacy, and the balance between luxury and rawness create something few automakers have replicated since. You can commute, carve a canyon, or simply idle in traffic and still feel connected to something extraordinary. Ownership means entering a fraternity of enthusiasts who value understatement and precision over flash. In the current collector landscape, the E39 M5 sits in a sweet spot. Modern enough for daily use, old school enough to feel analog. Insurance and maintenance costs are reasonable relative to its performance peers, and well-cared-for cars have shown strong, long-term reliability. More importantly, the experience is unfiltered. Every mechanical sound and vibration reminds you that this was engineered by people who believe driving was an art form. Whether you're chasing a pristine example or rescuing a tired one, the same truth applies. The E39 M5 rewards commitment. It's not a casual fling. It's a long-term relationship, and that's what makes it special. In a market flooded with fast but soulless machinery, it stands as a reminder that engineering brilliance doesn't expire. It endures. The best way to honor it is to keep driving it, to let its mechanical voice continue telling the story of a time when performance and purity still shared the same road. Because some cars don't just age, they become the standard against which every new one is measured. And this one still sets the bar.